and she went another 15 miles on fumes.
She told me herself, so we're gonna go on a date. She and me, her and I, me and her.
Well, Dad, we were kind of hoping to save that till after dinner.
No, I want to hear about it now.
Maxine said if they needed help, they would give me a call.
No, you're leaving. You want to know why? Because I gotcha.
I'm amazed at how that boy could stand in my kitchen in front of my face and lie to me like that.
I'm going to stand up to Mrs. Huxtable.
Well, I don't think you want to do that.
Your wife won't let you do anything.
Hi, my name is Miriam and this is the Black TV Show podcast, currently talking about the Cosby Show Season 3. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 61, The Cosby Show Season 3, episode 13, Monsters Man Huxtable. This episode aired January 8th, 1987. As we can tell from the first shot of this episode, it is winter time. Do not miss that time. Unfortunately, we're going to be going into that time soon, which I'm sad. The synopsis for this episode is that Sondra comes home from college and brings Elvin along with her. Theo is written up in a school paper about his wrestling skills. Elvin helps him learn a few new moves and shares with Theo that he's going to propose marriage to Sondra. In terms of the proposal, there will be an actual episode where it like they've already proposed, but they share it with the whole family, and that's going to be in a couple episodes from now. And that is a funny episode, just telling you know. And so it's, as I said, it's a snowy day in Brooklyn, and Rudy is on the phone trying to call Claire because apparently she's still at Hillman. Even though Denise is home, in the next episode Anna is gonna be at home, so it's, I guess his planning is taking forever, clearly. But of course we know because Felicia Rashad had her baby, of course she wouldn't gone back to work right away. So this is their excuse for her character Claire to not be in the show, basically. And so she's trying to call Claire, she's not answering, she misses her. And Cliff says, well, then writes Claire a letter, And so, she's never written a letter. So he gives her paper and pencil, and he, pretends to write kind of. Clearly he's not writing correctly, but he's like, hey, Mom, all this stuff. Dad is an amazing cook, amazing singer. And then when he says the singer part, Rudy takes the eraser and erases it. And he's like, why are you erasing that? And she says that Cliff is a bad singer. That's a common theme throughout the series, that Claire has the vocals, she's a better singer, and Cliff is just horrible. And so Cliff says, well, Sondra's coming home, and so she'll sing you the lullabies. And so Rudy asks, are they going to fight? And Cliff was like, I wouldn't call it fighting, I would call that debating. I guess you could say it, in the context. Fighting, debating could be the same thing. It's just the way the conversation goes, basically. Debating is two people that's, are, well, I wouldn't say equal, but they're fighting for some kind of right. So I guess, yeah. But fighting seems like in terms of the word fighting, I mean, it's much more harsh in terms of a word. And so, Sondra and Elvin arrive, and they had a nice drive, and they didn't have any fights. They're madly in love, okay? So stop with the fighting, guys. Stop. Don't say that is in the past, guys, okay? They're not fighting anymore. They are in love, okay? And so, and even Rudy is like, when are you going to fight? And they're like, we're not going to fight. And so Sondra goes up to go unpack, and Elvin says, bye, Muffin. And Cliff was like, oh, you call her Muffin. So Muffin Huxtable. Never heard that before. And so Sondra leaves and Rudy leaves, and Elvin goes sit down with Cliff and, talking about his relationship with Sondra has changed. He's reached a new height of love.
I wish I could put into words this feeling I have inside of me.
Well, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Right now, I am like a man standing on the peak of a snow-capped mountain. The sun beams brighter, the sky seems bluer, the birds sing louder. I only hope that you and Mrs. Huxtable have reached this height.
Theo comes in from school with a newspaper that Theo won a match in that they called him Monster Man Huxtable. And Elvin points out, oh, you're a wrestler? I was a wrestler too in high school and also in the freshman year of college. But, I had to stop because of a hip injury. And we find out Cliff also has wrestled, but he didn't do so well. He was 1-14, and the reason why he won that one game was because the guy didn't show up. But he did show up, but he had the flu, so it was a pretty easy match. It's the next day, and Vanessa checks Rudy's letter for Claire, and she doesn't like it. It's like Vanessa's standards is like crazy, and I feel like there's another episode coming up that's something to this extent also, but is it just me, or is Vanessa the smart one in this family? Well, we know for sure Sondra is like the super smart one because she comes to you with facts about everything. But is Vanessa the next smart person? Because like the terminologies she used, I didn't even know what the terminology was. So she tells Rudy, she doesn't like it, and she has to correct her form. And so she's going to teach her how to write a letter. So in terms of the things that you need to know how to write a letter, you got to pay attention to the structure, which is the heading, the salutation. Does anyone know what salutation is? Because I did not know what the salutation. I literally had to look that up, even though they mentioned it in the episode what that is. It's a greeting used in a letter. So like, dear, following the recipient's name. I did not know that's called a salutation. We are learning this show really teaches you things. And I guess I forgot about this episode, so I just never, I don't remember in school learning that terminology, salutation, So basically, yeah, so a heading, a salutation, a body, and a signature. And I think I missed something else because she was going really pretty fast because she said 5 things. And so the heading, of course, is the address and the date. And Rudy points out, Mom knows that where I live, but like she doesn't realize because if you're sending it to Claire, it needs to send to an address. And then the salutation is a greeting, as I said, used in a letter. It's it's so and so. It's like dear so and so, and like Rudy's like, who's so and so, and then Vanessa's like, Mom is so and so. And then the body in terms of the whole, whatever you need to gotta say. And then your signature at the end. And Rudy tells Vanessa she is a bad teacher, basically. And so we cut to the kitchen where Sondra is singing, which means she is happy. And Cliff comes down and he's like, whoa, what's with the singing here, And she mentions that, she feels that she's like running barefoot in the meadows, fresh covered in the morning dew. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Can someone explain that to me? Let's break this down again. Okay, like running barefoot. First of all, I don't like running barefoot outside my house. In the grass, I can't do that. In the meadow, I should have looked up what meadow is. I actually don't know what that. It must be some kind of grass or some kind of flowers and stuff like that. Fresh covered in the morning dew. So morning dew would be like, wouldn't that be like water from the night? Well, I'm so bad at translating this. But yeah, I don't know. We clearly understand she's in love. That's basically what she really is trying to say. She's just making it hard for us watching. What is she really feeling? Like, can she just be straightforward and be like, I am in love, Instead, she got to use this weird terminology. Like Sondra, Elvin likes experimental theater. I didn't know what experimental theater was until this episode. Like, I know theater, musical theater and all that stuff. But apparently that's a thing. And he's bought tickets for them for this weekend, and that's the reason why they're home for the weekend. And Sondra says that, she's the second luckiest woman because Claire is the first one to have Cliff. And so Sondra says she's going to go get the bubble bath ready for Rudy. And when she's gone, Elvin and Theo come home from practice. Theo did an amazing job at the practice, and Elvin says he wants to help Theo be more skilled, basically. And Elvin says that, Theo is really good. And Cliff was like, oh, it's probably because of genetics, And Elvin says, yeah, it tends to skip generations. So basically saying that Cliff was horrible at wrestling and probably Russell was like a great wrestler. So they decide they're going to do the practice in the basement. And so before, the scene ends, Cliff mentions to Elvin how much he appreciates what he has done for his family, like making, Sondra super happy, helping Theo practice wrestling. So he's appreciating, because for once, Elvin is doing something good. You remember, is it the last episode? Sorry, because all these episodes they're all combining together for me. But I think that it was the last episode where Kenny was in the episode and, he was trying to open the door for Rudy. And Cliff tells Kenny, calls him out saying Elvin. And he's like, who? Because Elvin is just, in terms of the standard, he's just horrible. And so for once, he has changed for being a better person. Let's see how long that will be kept up, okay? And so, because I know once we get to season 4, it won't be that great. So we're in the basement, and Theo is doing some upper body training with doing bicep curls with his dumbbells. And Elvin was like, hey, enough upper body training. Let's do some other training. And so Elvin tries to get him to do a weird eye to look like a wolf, but it really looks funny. To be honest, that's my opinion. It looks funny, okay? And then he gets Theo to grr. And Elvin teaches about reflexes, so it's like you gotta slap the person. I feel like I've done this a lot with my friends. I think it's just like a game that you do, right? And Theo is having a hard time, and at that point Cliff is downstairs watching, because when the grr part was like, Cliff was like, oh, do you want me to throw your bone down the stairs, or are you gonna come up and get dinner? And so we cut to this reflexing challenge, and Theo tells Cliff that you should try it, and Elvin was like, no, it's not a good idea. Cliff is old, and they say with age, the reflex is much slower, and it's apparently a scientific fact. I did not check that, so I can't confirm if that's a scientific fact, but that makes sense in a way. But as I said, we're not going to confirm that. And so Cliff was like, I'm going to try. And he fails horribly. And he's the one who, has to move his hand whenever Elvin tries to grab onto his hand or slap his hand. And he just fails badly. Elvin just taps him so many times. And so Sondra comes down and says, Elvin, you need to get ready. We got to go to the theater. And Elvin says, he doesn't think he can make it because he promised Theo he would train him. And, you start to see that they might get into an argument. So Cliff and Theo try to leave. And Sondra says, okay, Elvin, if you think to stay with Theo is more important, then that's okay. And both Cliff and Theo turn around and they're in shock. Like, what just happened? Because usually they would be fighting, okay? And Sondra asked if Cliff can go with her. And, Cliff asks, is there jazz? Because I think she was saying that there's some acting and music and a whole bunch of other things, it seemed like. And Cliff, all he cares about is jazz. We know that jazz is such an important part of his life. We realize from this series that's what it is. And she was like, yeah, there's jazz, but I don't think she was saying it like there will be jazz. She's just trying to get him to come with her. And so he was like, okay, I'll come. And so Theo says, Sondra and Cliff leave. And Theo tells Elvin he didn't realize how much he missed having a big brother, with all these sisters that he's had or have. And Elvin says, if things go well with Sondra, you might have a big brother-in-law. And Theo is happy about it. And he at this point, he takes down Elvin, because he's Monster Man Huxtable. And we end Act 1 there, and we go into Act 2. And Rudy finishes her letter for Claire, and Vanessa doesn't like it, because she signed it, I love Rudy. And then in the body of the letter, she already stated that she said, I love you. And she needs to use something else, sincerely, respectfully, all these other terms. And so Elvin and Theo come down and talk wrestle terminology. I don't watch wrestling. I really don't know much about wrestling. In terms of wrestling knowledge, I have, I've never actually watched a game, but I know, about Mike Tyson. I know about Muhammad Ali. What other wrestlers? The Rock, when he used to wrestle. I know people. I forgot. Money Mayweather. There's a Floyd Mayweather. See how bad I don't know about wrestling. So yeah, I don't really know much about wrestling. So to me, this is the terminology that they're using. I don't know what they're talking about. And they start saying, let's do a practice round in the living room. And so they're like, okay, let's move all the furniture. So we cut to being outside. And by the way, we're back to the outside set of the house. We haven't seen it since season 2. And I told you, there was a whole bunch of episodes in season 2 that we got to see it. And it's back for this episode. And it's apparently back for another episode in this season. And I don't know if it's going to continue being back throughout the rest of the series. It has been a while since I've seen the rest of the series, just in general, and sometimes I do not pay attention. Sometimes I have this show in the background, so we'll get to see, if they're going to use this outside set a lot. Because remember, I said that, the outside set is not the same as the established shot that they have, where the house is connected to a bunch of other houses. It's literally a house, and then a driveway is a street is right next to it. So it's not correct. There's a continuity error with it. So that's why I'm wondering, are they going to keep using it? Because do they realize that it doesn't make any sense? So Cliff and Sondra come home from the theater, and Cliff clearly did not like it. There was probably no jazz if we think about it. And so they were about to go upstairs into the house, and Sondra stops Cliff and says, I just want to let you know that, I'm getting serious with Elvin. Cliff was like, how serious? And she was like, well, we haven't said the word marriage, but it feels like it's going to happen. And Cliff was like, how can you say a marriage if you guys haven't talked about it? So true. That is a true fact. We cut to being in the living room, where Elvin and Theo are fighting each other, or I guess wrestling in the living room, and Rudy and Vanessa are cheering them on. And Cliff stops hey, stop, And Theo and Elvin get up, and they're like, oh, sorry. And Cliff says, you couldn't find anything on TV? And Theo says, we were just practicing. And Elvin says, he's doing really well, and he can't wait to watch him tomorrow night. And Sondra was like, we're supposed to go to the theater, because this time for the second, because this Peter McNan, by the way, this person that does the experimental theater, his name is Peter McNan. And it's a 2-day theater, apparently. So the second day, it has an orchestra and everything. So, Sondra thought Elvin was going to go with her. He would go with her, and Elvin says he suggests Cliff to go, and Cliff was like, no. And Elvin says, let's see Theo's match, and we can watch the theater another time, because it's a national tour, so they're gonna come back to New York City anyways. And it's Theo's match, it's not gonna happen again, I guess. Clearly, I don't think we talk about wrestling ever again in this series. Do you guys realize that? This is a one-off. At least with the football, even it was mentioned in this episode about his short football career, but I felt like it came up a few times throughout the first 3 seasons. So But wrestling, I think, goes away after a while. And so Sondra is like, okay, we'll go to Theo's match. And, Sondra asks Cliff, is any of his friends interested of going to this experimental theater? Because they don't want the tickets to go to waste. And Cliff was like, yeah, if I give them the tickets, I'll have no more friends. So true, so true. And we go into the kitchen, and Cliff sees Rudy trying to be on, like, she's on the phone trying to dial, and she's trying to call Claire. And Cliff was like, what about your letter to her? And Rudy says, it's too hard based on Vanessa's standards. The salutation. How did she say? It's a salutation, but she said salvation. I don't know how she said it. And dear so-and-so, and, she just can't deal with it. And, Cliff was like, okay, well, you say what you want to say, and I will write it down for you. And Rudy says, no, you can't do that. Mom says that your writing is like chicken scratch. And we end the scene right there. And it's the next day after Theo's match, and he's won, and everyone from the family has gone to see him. Vanessa felt it was boring. Sondra says she loves it. It was very expressive, and she loved it so much. And Sondra and Elvin, are in love about it. Like, they say, yeah, Elvin is like, this is why I love wrestling. It's so expressive. Theo and Cliff, they're on the couch, confused with what they're talking about. Like, okay, clearly you guys are in love. And so Cliff asks Theo for soda, but he calls him Muffin. And Theo says, sure, my little croissant. And they walk like, I don't want to say girls because that's stereotyping, but they're like kind of moving their shoulders, moving their body, and going to the kitchen. And they go in the kitchen to get some sodas. And so Theo asks Cliff, how did he feel after losing his matches when he played wrestling? And he was like, it burned my face, it was all over, but it wasn't terrible. After the match, Claire would come and kiss the bruises for me. And Claire says, he was still a winner. So he felt he was a happy loser. And Theo asks, like, did you guys have nicknames for each other? And Cliff says to Claire, her nickname was Lem Lem, which is weird to me to hear that because my mom's name is Lem Lem. So it was just strange to hear that. I was like, because like for Theo, I guess for Malcolm and Bill, they've never heard that term, and I don't know if Lem Lem is like there's other, because I've seen like restaurants that are called Lem Lem and all that stuff. But I don't know if in other languages it means something, but I know for me it's my mom's name. So it was weird. It's like my mom was part of the show in a way. And so Claire calls Cliff baby cakes, which that seems very weird. And, Theo leaves Cliff and calls him, buy baby cakes, and we end the episode right there. So this was a very strange episode, kind of weird, but Jeffrey Owens guest starred in this episode as Elvin. Of course, Lisa Bonet and Felicia Rashad both do not appear in this episode. And I guess the lesson for this episode is wrestling is expressive. Two wills locked in conflict symbolize struggle of all men. It's the man that controls his fate. That's what I got from this episode, because this episode is all about wrestling, clearly. So I was like, we got to use a wrestling terminology. You can put that into something else in other activities that are also expressive, but I'm using this word for word from Sondra and Elvin. And the question I have for you guys is, what nicknames do you have for your loved ones? I want to hear, did you guys have Muffin or Baby Cakes or Lem Lem, or Little Croissants? Let me know at Twitter and Instagram at Black TV Shows Pod using hashtag MonsterMan. And the next episode is episode 62. The Cosby Show Season 3, Episode 14, Rudy Spends the Night. And I will see you all on the next one.